Hey, Steeler Nation, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley, and welcome back to Steelers Almighty, the fastest growing Steelers channel on YouTube. We appreciate everybody being in here. We have got a good show for you guys today. It is game week, and we are super excited. I know you guys are excited. We got some football to get after. So I am ready for this to get going. So, first off, Mike Tomlin is feeling the pressure. I think it's pretty evident, no matter what he tells you. I think Mike Tomlin's feeling a little bit, but that may not be a bad thing, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get into that. Next, can Roman do it? It's your opportunity, Roman Wilson. The Steelers didn't get anybody. Now, whether they could or they couldn't, whether they decided to, we'll talk about that. That's a different conversation. But the job is his. We'll see if he can do it. How big is week one, ladies and gentlemen? I think it's enormous, but we're going to talk about it and talk about more specifically why it's enormous. And then, our man, the forgotten man, Pat Fryermuth, ladies and gentlemen, with all the new weapons and everything, it seems like he's the forgotten guy, and I don't think he needs to be, or he even can be for the Steelers to be successful. We'll talk about that. Make sure you stick around to hear that. So, again, thank you, everybody, for always showing up weekly. You can find us youtube.com/Steelers Almighty. Anywhere you have social media, you can find us at Steelers Almighty. And if you prefer the audio version of this podcast, make sure, or you can find us anywhere that you get your podcast. It's at Steelers Almighty. So let's get into this, ladies and gentlemen. First up, the pressure is on Mike Tomlin. I don't think there's any doubt the pressure is on. Now, does that pressure necessarily mean that he's going to be fired? I would venture to say no. I know there's a lot of people out there that want that to happen. But in a world of reality, which Steelers Almighty, we tend to live in, Mike Tomlin's not necessarily getting fired. But the seat could start to heat up if some of these expectations aren't met. So let's talk about it. Can't keep living in mediocrity, people. And what I mean by living in mediocrity, 9-8, 10-7, smacked around in the first round of the playoffs, that's just simply not good enough. It isn't. Look, I know it's impressive that he's never had a losing season before, and it is. It's absolutely impressive. I totally understand. And for people that are going to jump on and say, well, it doesn't mean anything. I didn't say that it didn't mean anything, but for somebody to never have a losing record in 18 years, you can deny it all you want. You're being silly. It is impressive. But at the end of the day, the main thing is, what can you do in the playoffs? How far are you advancing in the playoffs? That means more. It just does. And you've heard what I've said a million times. If the Steelers could make the playoffs without winning a regular season game, yes, I'd be mad that they lost games. But if they could win 2 playoff games that year, I would take it. I would absolutely take it. So that's where I'm with it. I think most fans are kind of with that. It's like, okay, it's time to move on. I think he feels it, and I think the actions are speaking louder than words. So, and I know he's not saying it. I know he gives the Mike Tomlinisms, and he's really good at doing that, giving coach speak or Tomlin speak. It's actually one of the things that I admire him. But I think he feels it, and I think the actions are speaking louder than words. Because here's the thing: why do you bring in Aaron Rodgers? Like, what's the point of bringing in Aaron Rodgers? And Aaron Rodgers wasn't a last-minute signing either, people. He was going after Aaron Rodgers when Aaron Rodgers got cut. Hell, there were rumors that the Steelers were trying to look to get Aaron Rodgers even before he got cut. So why do you bring that guy in if you're not trying to win a playoff game? Because if you're not trying to win a playoff game, he could have just rolled with Mason Rudolph and moved on from there. But that's not what he did. They bring in a 41-year-old 4-time MVP, former MVP. I'm not saying he plays like that now, but he did do that. Why bring in a Jalen Ramsey? Make a trade for Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, and trade away one of the best safeties in football. Why do you do that? Like, what would be the point? You could have easily kept Mika Fitzpatrick on the team and just kept doing the same thing. But there were so many people, and myself included, that said we can't keep doing the same thing if we want to get a different result. Well, didn't Mike Tomlin do that? Like, he brought in a 41-year-old quarterback, you know, an Aaron Rodgers at that. It's not just any 41-year-old quarterback. He brought in a Jalen Ramsey. He traded Mika Fitzpatrick. He brought in another big-time pass-catching tight end. He did those things. So, yes, they made moves. Now, did they trade away George Pickens? Yes. And bring in DK Metcalf? Yes. So they kind of replaced the two. All right. But they did make those moves. I think Mike Tomlin feels it more than what you guys are thinking, man. I just think they are. And the Steelers, I think they're loading up to win a playoff game. I think that's what these moves were all about, is to load up to try to win a playoff game. Does it necessarily mean that they're not trying to win a Super Bowl? No, doesn't mean that. If things fall in their favor, can they get to a Super Bowl? Of course they can. Of course. But I believe the Steelers and Mike Tomlin specifically are saying, okay, enough's enough. I got to win a playoff game because this is getting ridiculous. You know, he may be looking at it himself like, well, damn, what are we doing here? Can't keep doing the same thing. And so they made the changes that I think to load up to win a Super Bowl. The season might end up as a failure. And if it does, I think it falls squarely on Mike Tomlin. Obviously, Omar Khan and Art Rooney, but it will be Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin's the head coach. Let's not deflect away from that. Look, we don't allow other coaches in other organizations, we don't give them that grace. Mike Tomlin doesn't deserve it either. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt, but if this season's a failure, it's because this is the path that he thought was best. And let's make no mistake about it, Mike Tomlin was every bit of the decision maker on the route that they should go. Okay. So this is the path he thought was best. And if it doesn't end up in a playoff win, and I'm here to say it right now, playoff win or bust. I don't want to hear the nonsense. It is playoff win or bust for me. And if it doesn't end up that way, well, yeah, it'll be time to start talking about what are we doing. It'll, because I've pushed back on that a lot with Mike Tomlin because I want to give him the grace. I understood that the team was rebuilding, but at some point the rebuilding has to stop. It can't just be a 20-year rebuild. It can't even be a 10-year rebuild. I don't want to hear it. At some point, the rebuilding has to stop, and you have to start winning meaningful games late in the season, meaning playoff games. Because we've seen them win some meaningful games down the stretch to get into the playoffs. They've done that a few times, especially when we thought, 2 years ago in 2024 or 2023, when they had lost those 3 games, to the Patriots, Arizona, and then the coup de grace getting destroyed by the Colts. You're thinking, okay, the season's over. Then they go on a 3-game winning streak and make the playoffs. But we need to see a playoff win. It's just that simple for me. And I believe Mike Tomlin is like, yes, it's time. You know, we've rebuilt, we've done this, we've drafted guys, we moved around, we changed the O-line, we're starting to get younger on the D-line, we got younger in certain spots, we brought in maybe veterans, but better players in the secondary for sure. Okay, playoff win or bust. That's the way I look at it. I know that's the way that most of our fans look at it. Some of you will say Super Bowl or bust. I get it. And I also think that's what Mike Tomlin is looking at it as. Like I said, the additions that got brought in, there's no reason to do that if you're not trying to win a playoff game. And I think Mike Tomlin is like, yes, this year we need to win a playoff game. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Playoff or bust for me, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get to the poll question. Poll number 1. How do you feel about the Steelers only keeping 5 wide receivers on the roster? A, strongly agree. It's a smart move for depth. B, somewhat agree. I can see the reasoning. C, somewhat disagree. We could use another wide receiver, or D, strongly disagree. This is a risky decision. So, what do you feel as far as the 5 wide receivers on the roster? Moving on. Can Roman Wilson do it, ladies and gentlemen? Look, Roman Wilson has been given a tremendous opportunity here. He's given a huge opportunity. The Pittsburgh Steelers didn't go out and get another wide receiver. It's his job to lose. Now, getting into that a little bit, did the Steelers try to go get another wide receiver? I think they did. Were they able to? No. Look, we can pass the blame or pin the blame on whoever we want to pin the blame on, but it didn't happen. I don't think now is the time to pin the blame because it doesn't matter. This is where we are. But I think part of the thinking, and I know we've talked about this, is that Roman Wilson, they're saying, look, we drafted this guy in the 3rd round, and we expected him to be number one, somebody that we could count on this season. We thought it was somebody we could count on last season, but we didn't see that. And I think, the loss 2024, I think that's why a lot of people are so down on Roman Wilson, is because we literally didn't see him last year. Injuries sabotaged his season, plus a Steelers lack of trust when he actually got healthy. So for whatever reason that was, it was a real thing. So he did not get onto the football field. So it's a lot of unknown. And when there's unknown, people get a little squirrely, myself included. It's like, I don't know. You're telling me he's supposed to be good, but we haven't seen it. So when you haven't seen something that you're depending on, human nature is to push back, step away, say, hold on a second. I've done the exact same thing, but this is his opportunity. I would say maybe one of the bigger opportunities that he's going to have in his lifetime, definitely up to this point. You get drafted into the National Football League in the 3rd round. You miss a full season, your rookie season, so you basically redshirted. And now, I don't know if you want to say it's wide receiver 2, but in 11 personnel, Roman Wilson's going to be out there, ladies and gentlemen. That's the guy who's going to be out there. So for me, I think this is a huge step for him. Like I said, he was a 3rd round pick. We didn't get to see him, and people tend to step back. But the thing is that last year. Look, a lot of times guys develop slower than others. And maybe that was one of the things with him. I know the injuries played a big part in why he didn't get on the field in 2024. They played a big, big part. But having said that, is that necessarily a bad thing? I don't know that it is. I really don't know that it is. I think some of it is that he got to learn, he got to look and watch. I'm sure he wanted to be out there. I know the Steelers wanted him to be out there. Look, you're not drafting a 3rd rounder for the guy to sit all year. That's not what you're doing. You're wanting that guy to produce. And I think that's part of the reason where the Steelers got to the point, you know what, we've seen enough in preseason, mini camp, OTAs, training camp. We're comfortable with him being on the football field. By week 4, that may change, and the Steelers might have to make a move. But right now, it's his job. Can he do it? Look, he's got the tools. I don't think there's any doubt that he's got the tools. I'm not saying he's a 6'4", guy out there that can jump 45-inch, has a 45-inch vertical. I'm not saying anything like that. But he has got the size, the speed. He's also a willing blocker to play in this offense. He's got all the things that you need to be a productive wide receiver in this system, and pretty much in any system. But he's got it. Now he's just got to go out there and do it. The one thing that I like that I saw in this offseason, and again, we've talked about this, is Aaron Rodgers called him out. Told him, hey, man, stop getting in your own head. Stop looking for my approval or somebody else's approval and go out there and play football. Because he was having a bad camp initially. After Aaron Rodgers called him out, he turned it around. That, to me, ladies and gentlemen, is a great sign. Not even a good sign. I think it's a great sign because he responded to little adversity. He responded to, okay, I can either sulk because the quarterback's saying I'm not playing well, or I can actually listen to what he's saying and go out there and turn this thing around. Well, he listened. He listened and he got better. The last 3.5 weeks of camp, Roman Wilson was incredible by all accounts. We saw him in preseason games. He looked phenomenal. Now it's preseason. I'm the first guy to tell you that preseason, don't jump to these major conclusions because of preseason. But he was playing the majority of time against number one cornerbacks and secondary guys, and he looked okay. And it was Mason Rudolph throwing him the football, not even Aaron Rodgers. So for me, he turned it around. I'm personally excited. I want to see what Roman Wilson can do. I think he's got the tools. It appears that he's got the mindset now that somebody has given him the okay to just go play football, man. Stop beating around the bush. Stop all this nonsense. Maybe it was sulking, self-sulking, you know, self-loathing. Stop all that and go play. You got the ability, go do it. And he did. Now he's got to do it in the regular season because all that preseason stuff is fine. But if it doesn't translate to the regular season, it doesn't mean a damn. The Pittsburgh Steelers have seen that over and over again, and we're not falling for it anymore. So go make it work, young man. Let's go to the poll. Can Roman Wilson get the job done? Poll number 2. Was Roman's call out by Aaron Rodgers a significant motivation for him? Or will it add pressure? That's a good question, man. A, significant. It's just what he needed. B, added pressure that he may not be ready for. C, no effect. He was going to be who he is regardless. Or D, I don't care. We need another guy. Ooh. Ugh. Little spicy in the answers are there, ladies and gentlemen. Little spice, because it could be multiple answers. Make sure you put a 2 in front of the answer so we know exactly what poll question you are answering. Let's move on. Let's get to the halftime. Look, man, thank you guys so much for hanging in during the off. I know that it gets boring. I know that it can become tedious sometimes, but here's the thing. Football is here. We've got a ton of support from you guys. Thank you very much. Remember to be a member, our watch parties. Make sure you sign up at the Hall of Fame level if you want to join on game day for our watch parties. They are absolutely, memberships are available for you guys. We appreciate you very, very much. Also, our merch is also there. If you want any merch, Steelers Almighty Shop. We got a ton of stuff. You see my hat. My hat finally came in. I ordered it late, but it finally came in. So we got a ton of merch out there for you guys to buy and be a part of. So we appreciate any support. If you guys want to have your game day Steelers Almighty stuff, make sure you guys order that now. So we appreciate everything that you guys have done. And then, look, we've got the good old pick challenge. Make sure you get that in before the first game. Pick every single game of the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. If you get them all right, you'll be able to win yourself $250 in Steelers Almighty Shop to pick out whatever merch you want up to $250. So it'll be a great, great tool for you guys to win. It's a fun contest. Just make sure you get your picks in before week 1 starts. Let's keep going, people. Let's keep going. So speaking of week 1, how big is week 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Let's start here. The storyline. The storyline is clearly there. The QB swap game is what I've heard people talk about. Aaron Rodgers from the Jets to the Steelers, Justin Fields from the Steelers to the Jets. Yeah, it's there. How Aaron Rodgers was basically fired. Some people didn't like it. Some people didn't think it was that big of a deal. I don't know. You get flown across country. They ask you one question, and because you don't answer it right, they were willing to get rid of you. Depends on what side of the fence you fall on that. I'm assuming on whether you think that's cool or not. But I'm thinking that's probably something that you could have just done in a phone call. Hey, do you plan on playing football? You want to play for the Jets? He says it's intriguing. You don't like that answer. Well, hey, Aaron, we're moving in a different direction. I don't need to look you in your eyes and fly you across the country to do that. We could do that on a Zoom call, my man. But it is what it is. Not our issue to even deal with or talk about. But that's what happened there. It was a flop in New York. We're kidding ourselves if we don't think it is. But you could also say the same thing about Justin Fields in Pittsburgh. Like, he wasn't good here last year. I mean, what did he do well other than not necessarily lose us games? He was 4-2. He didn't do anything that said, oh, we got to have this guy be the starter. There's so many people clamoring out there. Oh, well, he runs. If the main attribute of your quarterback is that he runs, then that's not a good quarterback. You know, perfect example would be Lamar Jackson. The first year that he got the starting job, that's what people said. Or when he initially got the starting job, not his first year. His first year, he became the MVP. But initially, when he got the starting job, that's what people said. Hey, man, he's just a runner. He can't throw. He's not reading defenses, yada, yada, yada. So what did he do? He went out and got better. And the very next year, his first year of starting, he was the MVP of the league. Justin Fields has had multiple opportunities. Has he played anywhere even remotely close to a level of that nature? No. So I never understood the clamoring to have him on the Steelers. I was totally against it. It's like, no. But either way, neither here nor there. It's still week one. I like our chances. As far as the offense, look, the offense is going to get a solid test in week one. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. The Jets' defense is still really good. They've lost a couple pieces, but their defense is good. That D-line is good. So there's some stuff out there for the New York Jets, ladies and gentlemen. Trust me, they've got the ability to give our offense headaches. That D-line, the secondary, yeah, they've got some stuff. The wide receivers, like I said, we will get tested. Our offensive line will get tested. But it was last year. It was last year. And the Steelers stood up. And so I was proud of them. So hopefully they can do it week one again. Now, will this championship defense stand up for the Steelers? And you heard what I said. Championship defense, because, hey, you're paying that kind of money for a defense. Shouldn't it be a championship defense? I think so. And remember, top five, we're not settling for anything less than top five from our defense this year. I'm guessing that a top five defense would qualify you as a championship defense. Now, clearly, you need your offense to come along with you. But yeah, top five championship defense. What are they going to be able to bring to the table? Look, the secondary is better. The front seven, better. They're going to have a little test. Now, I know there's an injury to a Jets offensive lineman. We'll talk a little bit about that on the scouting report on Friday. But yeah, there's the Steelers are going to be tested. That's okay. We're up to the test. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if we're not, that's a different problem. And we'll have to discuss that when it comes time to the report card that we do on Monday. But I'm looking forward to all of it, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely. I think this is a big opportunity. Look, you need a fast start this season. The Steelers' schedule gets tougher as it goes along. It's not like this is just a easy, mediocre schedule that the Steelers have. It isn't. And it's important to get off to a good start. First of all, it's important to get off to a good start no matter what your schedule is. But it becomes even more apparent because the Steelers schedule, as you go along, it gets tougher as the weather starts to change. So getting off to a quick start, starting in week one, I think is imperative. And the main thing about this football game, the Steelers are better than the Jets. So if you're better than the Jets, then just go be better. Go be better. It's okay. Number one, it's okay to say that you're better. And number two, it's another thing to just go and be better. Steelers have that opportunity. Week one is immensely important. It's not make or break. So I don't want you to hear me say, oh, well, if they don't win week one, the season's over. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying to set the tone for the season, it's important that you get off to a good start. Week one is the start of that. That's all I'm saying. Let's go to the poll question, people. Poll 3. Who do you believe will have the biggest impact in the Steelers versus Jets matchup? A, Aaron Rodgers. B, the Steelers secondary. C, Warren and Johnson. Yeah, Jalen and Caleb. And D, DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf. Warren and Johnson. Can that be like the law firm? Is that nickname good enough to be the law firm? Let's give it a minute. Let's give it a minute before we start that. Before we start the law firm of Warren and Johnson. Let's give it a minute, people. Having said that, make sure you put a 3 in front of which answer so we know which poll question that you are answering, ladies and gentlemen. All right, moving on. Our main man. So the forgotten man, Pat Freiermuth. Look, Freiermuth led the team in receptions last year, led the team in touchdown catches, was second in receiving yards. Pat Freiermuth was a big part of this offense. Steelers brought in more weapons, and not a lot of people have talked about Pat Freiermuth in this offseason. Look, they talked about Aaron Rodgers. He brought in. They talked about DK Metcalf, brought in. They talked about trading George Pickens, somebody that we lost. Talked about Roman Wilson having a bigger role. Calvin Austin having a bigger role. Jonnu Smith being brought in to have a good role, a solid role. Darnell Washington having a bigger role. Caleb Johnson being drafted. Offensive line. It seems like everything under the sun on the offensive side of the football was being talked about except Pat Freiermuth. Now, the only talk that I heard was Pat Freiermuth possibly being traded. Well, that didn't happen, and I didn't think it should have happened, didn't want it to happen, and quite frankly, wouldn't have made sense if it did happen. So I'm glad that it didn't. But there are things that we do need from Pat Freiermuth because a lot of people are still pissed off from, and the last thing they remember about Pat Freiermuth is not being able to get 6 inches on a third down play in the playoffs against the Ravens, against a guy that he probably outweighed by 35 pounds, and he wasn't able to get an extra 6 inches. I mean, we saw it. None of us liked it, but that was a reality. But I think we got to get past it because we need Pat Freiermuth, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about that because for this version of an Arthur Smith offense, you need 2 pass catching tight ends that are available to do the job. We love Darnell Washington. Can he probably do more? I think he can, but he hasn't proven to be the pass catcher that Pat Freiermuth has proven to be. Now, some would say, well, he hasn't had the opportunities. Okay. But maybe he hasn't earned those opportunities. Bottom line is, we've seen Pat Freiermuth do it. He's going to get his opportunities. Pat Freiermuth needs to be a big portion of this offense for it to be effective the way they want to do it. You know, living out of 12 and 13 personnel, I think the Steelers are going to do that. And being able to either flex him, even getting into 12 personnel, but being able to flex either him or Jonnu out, into the slot. Being able to do innovative stuff like that. I think that means something, ladies and gentlemen, for them to be able to do it. Some versatility. Now, it's going to take Arthur Smith some innovation on his part. Absolutely. He's going to have to come up with some stuff. But if he can, and he does, Pat Freiermuth is going to have to be a big part of that. Now, is blocking still a big question? Of course it is. We've seen Pat Freiermuth and his blocking. I mean, it's laughable. But it got better last year, if you can believe that. It got better from 2023 to 2024. I mean, just looking at it, none of it looked good. But if you look at it, it was better because just putting up more of a fight. That's all you want him to do. Just put up more of a fight. Okay, fine. Get in the way. Hang in there a little bit. He did that. And we know that Arthur Smith wants to run the football. The Steelers are going to want to run the football. At least it appears that way. Well, Freiermuth's going to have to block. You can't just have Darnell Washington be the only tight end out there when it's time to block. He's going to have to do that. And you can't just be in 12 personnel and only run the football to the side of Darnell Washington. You can't do that. He's going to have to be the point of attack from time to time. The play side guy. He's going to have to do that. But like I mentioned, he got better from 2023 to 2024. I'm not saying it was good. I'm just saying he actually got better. He did. The tape shows that he did. But he does need to be more dynamic. Like I just mentioned, that play in Baltimore, that sticks in everybody's craw because that was something that ended a drive and essentially ended the game for the Pittsburgh Steelers, not being able to get that first down when just a little more wiggle, little more fight, a little bit more dynamic to get away from somebody that you outweigh by, let's just even say 30 pounds. Let's drop it down from 35 pounds. You got to be able to do that. And he wasn't. But he's got to be more dynamic. And I think he will be because I think Arthur Smith's going to put him in positions to be more dynamic, give him a little bit more space to work with. I think that's what we're going to see. But he needs the help. But if he gets the help, Pat Freiermuth's somebody that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to need, ladies and gentlemen. He just is. He's too important to what we're trying to do on a day-to-day basis. He's too important. I know we got new weapons, and we need to use all of those weapons. But one of the weapons that we can't forget about is Pat Freiermuth. You just can't. He needs to be used in a way that he can help. And it's not like Pat Freiermuth is not good. Am I saying he's a top 5 tight end in the league? No. But to say that Freiermuth is washed or he's not any good, no. He's a good tight end, ladies and gentlemen, if used properly. He can still be a good tight end. Even if his numbers aren't the same this year as what they were in previous years, it still doesn't mean that he's not having a good season. The Steelers just have more options now. That's all. They just have more options with a better signal caller. And that makes all the difference. But let's go to the poll. So Pat Freiermuth, poll number 4. How will Pat Freiermuth's performance impact the Steelers' success this season? A, major positive impact. B, moderate positive impact. C, little to no impact. Or D, a negative impact. What's Muth going to do this year? I'm interested to see. Make sure you put a 4 in front of the number so we know or put a 4 in front of the letter in the answer so we know exactly what poll question you guys are answering. Look, people, it's football time. It's football time. I could come up with a whole bunch of, hey, this, hey, that. Nope, I'm not going to do that. It's time to go play football. All the wide receiver 2 talk. Time to go play football. Oh, the offense, time to go play football. No more excuses. Here's where we are. This is what we got. Now, does that mean we can't add to what we have? No, it doesn't mean that. Will things change? Sure they will, because injuries are going to happen, unfortunately. But it's time to go play football. It's time for us to put all this rumor mill and the nonsense behind us and start winning football games. Doesn't have to blow anybody out. If we win every game by 1 point, guess what? They still give you a Lombardi trophy at the end of it. So anybody that's out there clamoring that, oh, we should have blown this team out, should have blown that team out. Man, look at lines. Vegas doesn't put too many 10-point spreads on any NFL game because they know. They know. So just give me a win. Just give me a win. Give me a win and let's get better for the next week. And that's what we need to do against the Jets. Get ourselves a win and move on to next week. So appreciate you guys, man. I'm super excited. Football is here. Thank you for all your support. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in the comments like you guys always do, and always hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes out. Until next time, we will talk to you soon, and aloha.